Who are you when the performance ends? So, as I was actually writing this TED talk, I was trying to think of examples for the topic that I was going to speak about, and was just so happened to put on a Netflix documentary about a global musician, a very famous singer you all know. And I was sitting there trying to think of examples, and just in the background I heard this guy say, before he was about to step on stage at Fenway Park in Boston in front of thousands of people, the first thing he says is, after all this, who am I? I don't know who I am when the performance is done. And I think that that statement, that question, goes way beyond one famous singer. I think it is also a massive reason why many men today are struggling. This is the reality of the statistics. In the UK, 3 out of every 4 people who die by suicide are men. Men are more likely to struggle with addiction and more likely to die from alcohol-related causes. But, funny enough, the least likely to ever ask for help or ever seek any support. There's many reasons for this, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. But here's the truth. I come from West Belfast. I live minutes from this building. And here in West Belfast, we've lost way too many men. Men that I grew up with, men that I knew my whole life, men who lived minutes from this building, men who are now buried minutes from this building. And I don't think that the problem that we have at the minute with men is because they're weak. It's because we've built a generation of men who have built their entire identity on a performance. From a young age, whether openly or quietly, men are taught that their self-worth is solely based on what they can provide, their outcomes, their achievements, their job, their career, their status, their social media, their degree. It's all about winning. It's all about being successful. But here's the problem with that. It's unstable because eventually jobs may disappear, relationships may end, you'll finish uni, things will happen. That's life. Life humbles every man. Eventually your body's going to break down on you. And when you build your entire identity on that, when stuff like that happens, you have setbacks, you have failures. It doesn't feel like a bump in the road. It feels like you fell off a cliff because you're losing who you are. And I know it because I've lived it. For years, I was the fit guy, the prospect in bodybuilding. From the age of 15, I was working in the gym, on the gym floor, 15, for a gym membership. And people had high hopes and ambitions for me, and I was really ambitious. But somewhere along the way, coaching stopped becoming something that I was passionate about, something that I wanted to do as a career. It actually became who I was. I didn't know who I was beyond being a coach. And I feel like a lot of men do that. But here's the real danger when it comes to doing that. I tied my entire self-worth to numbers. So how many clients I had, how much money I was making, how many people followed me and liked my stuff on social media, how many people would give me validation, strangers. And see, when those numbers dipped, I dipped completely. So I distracted myself with alcohol, drug abuse, validation from people I didn't like or even respect. Anything to numb myself from facing the reality of those setbacks, those failures, because it felt detrimental to my identity. But then I started to actually pay attention. I started to pay attention to fellas, not fellas who had never faced any struggles, but the fellas who faced real setbacks and failures and real adversity, but still throughout it all, they managed to stay stable. They managed to stay grounded. And there's one thing I noticed about all these fellas. They weren't always the strongest or the richest or the most successful. They just didn't balance their entire identity on one pillar. They spread it across three. The three pillars is a system that I have created after years of working with men and going through struggles myself. The first pillar is the physical pillar, not because getting muscles solves mental health or your 5K team is going to, solve all your problems. That's just not true. I wish it was, but it's not. But the thing about physical health is that nutrition, sleep, looking after yourself, it gives you agency in your life when things are out of control. So when life is chaotic, which it'll get, life hits everybody hard. Everyone in this room has faced some kind of struggle. If you have physical health as a pillar in your life, it gives you agency whenever everything else is chaotic. The second thing is the mental pillar, the mind. It's about being able to respond to life instead of reacting to life, being able to actually sit with discomfort, make hard decisions, have hard conversations, and stop avoiding things. Face reality. Don't numb yourself. Something that we're all guilty of as men is numbing ourselves instead of just facing the problem, facing the reality, the hard conversation that needs to be had. The third one, which is often overlooked, is connection. So connection is your environment. It's your friends. It's people around you. Men, the biggest lie that I hear from men, and I've said this myself, is I don't need any help. I'm all right. I can do it on my own. I'm a lone wolf. That's the way it is. I can do it by myself. That's what men are supposed to do. It's the biggest lie ever told. Isolation magnifies everything. Have you ever been in a bad place and tried to sit by yourself and think about it and come up with a solution? Don't think so. Connection will give you perspective that you didn't have. When you're in isolation, you only have the negative perspective that you're sunk into. With connection, I also want to make this point. Your environment is very important. I'm sure you've all heard a quote. You're a product of the 5 people you keep closest to you. Or show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It's evolved dramatically. It's completely changed. I would argue that now you are a product of the 5 podcasts you listen to the most, or the 5 creators that you follow on LinkedIn or Instagram the most. So what you consume, your algorithm is part of your environment, whether you like it or not. It will influence a lot of your thoughts. It will influence a lot of your actions as well. So be careful about your algorithm, your social media, all the rest of it. Not just the people you have around you. The people you have around you is so important, but we often overlook this because we think, it's nothing to worry about. It's just a screen. But the effect that has on you is insane. And then something happened, fatherhood. I became a daddy, and for the first time in my life, I felt clarity, I felt connection, and I felt peace. After years of tying my identity to a career, to a job, to a performance. Because my daughter, Grace, she doesn't care how many people follow me on Instagram. She doesn't care how this TED Talk goes. She doesn't care how much money I make or how successful I am. All she knows is that I'm her daddy. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. And that's perspective that you can't buy. The number one question that I get asked all the time, and it's also a trending question on Instagram, is what defines a man? What is a man? What is masculinity? There is no single answer. Everybody's looking for a single answer to a question that doesn't have one. A man is a human being before he is anything else. He's capable of strength and of vulnerability, or as I like to say, transparency, of courage and of fear, of love and of feeling grief and compassion, but serious conviction. A man is flexible and comprehensive. He's who he needs to be in the moment. Maybe the answer to this question isn't to narrow men down into a single definition. It's to give them the freedom to define themselves with comprehensiveness and flexibility, as I said. Because every time we create one definition for men, we leave a gap where thousands, millions of men do not fit into that definition. So that is my answer to that question, and a lot of people are surprised by that. So I'll leave you with this. Performance is merely a metric that you can use to look at how well you're doing in business, how well you're doing in fitness, how well you're doing across the board with your job. It'll give you statistics, it'll give you graphs, but what it can't give you is identity. It cannot tell you who you are. So I want to ask this. If tomorrow I was to take away all your careers, all your LinkedIn, all your Instagram, all your achievements, all of it, all the validation you receive, everything, who would you be? Because at the end of the day, performance can tell you what you can do, but it can't tell you who you are. Thank you.